Hello, fellow travelers. I'm Dr. Richard Hector. Welcome to Soucouyant, a Caribbean supernatural tale, where we reimagine the Soucouyant, a character from the folklore of the Caribbean. Here we follow her as she is depicted in Trinidad. Her depiction might be different in other places in the Caribbean. If you know about the Soucouyant, I hope you like this reinterpretation. Episode 22, Soucouyant, a Caribbean supernatural tale, Plasma. In the previous episode, Papa Bois explained his relationship with the forest and humans. In the current episode, we see that the Soucouyant can change into a substance similar to plasma. However, she continued to be sentient. She could move at the speed of light, but somehow Papa Bois could move faster than she. He mentioned being aware of plants and animals. The closeness of the awareness formed a tight bond. Now we know Papa Bois and the Soucouyant were not supernatural. We are really interested in how they came to be.
You will smell like clay?
Asked Margarita.
We don't have to. Our presence can evoke the feeling in you, but if you want us to smell like clay, we can do that.
You would walk around smelling like clay? That's funny to think about you smelling dirty. Would everyone you meet smell you?
Asked Margarita.
You can acknowledge openly or not as you wish.
Wouldn't that be disrespectful?
Not at all, not at all. You will always be respected and always safe. Kaiwa had given her word to you.
Is Kaiwa your leader, like your queen?
No, we don't have leaders or queens. That's also a human way of thinking. We all feel love for Kaiwa, or some feeling most closely to what you call love. Kaiwa, as you call her, is the first. She arrived here first and called it what you refer to as home. In that way, she is first, very literally, first among equals.
And he is nothing if not literal, as I said before, laughed Kaiwa.
Oh, okay. How did she let you know? Do you have meetings? When I was young, I heard the old people talking about spirits meeting at the base of silk cotton trees.
I've heard that story as well, said Kaiwa.
But we don't have to meet to communicate. You don't?
Asked Margarita.
No,
said John.
You use telepathy, like mind reading in the movies?
sometimes with humans.
Said John, and he looked at Kaiwa.
Well, mostly, Kaiwa, among, as you say, our kind. We know instantly.
Oh, are you linked?
Partly or partially. Like, you can hear each other when you speak. We are. What's the human term?
John looked at Kaiwa again for help.
I think they called it entangled. Well, partially entangled,
Kaiwa suggested. When they saw the blank expression on Margarita's face, they laughed, and Kaiwa said,
You can think of us as linked,
Miss Margarita? Said Kaiwa. In a blink, she turned into Gemma.
We can control our bodies in ways you can't. Yet.
Margarita started at the sudden appearance of her former protege. Then she smiled and said,
I'll never get used to that. But you know what? I can't manage any more of this tonight. I feel privileged, more than privileged to sit here. I could spend the whole night. But then again, I have to go back out in the regular world.
Are you okay? Asked Gemma, approaching Margarita.
Do you need my help?
She gently put her hand on Margarita's shoulder. Margarita touched the hand on her shoulder and said,
I'm okay, thank you, Mama. I can handle anything after today. I'm not afraid knowing that you...
Then she looked at John.
And you are looking out for me.
And the rest of the kind are looking out for you too. As few as we are compared to humans,
said John.
How many?
asked Margarita.
I don't know, said Kaiwa. Some of us are still sleeping. Some others have dropped the link. Those who I know of are just more than 1,000. A few hundred here in Trinidad and others in different places.
Margarita started to ask more questions, but stopped herself and said,
You know, I have 1,000,000 questions, but I better start heading home before they start getting worried.
Oh, before you start getting worried, you mean? Laughed Gemma.
Well, that too.
Everything is fine there,
said John. Margarita looked at him and said,
Right, the trees and animals let you know.
Yes,
replied John. Margarita shuddered and stood up saying,
Beer, what a day, what a day.
It wasn't a question. Margarita gathered up her belongings. John pulled the accordion door. The three of them went out to the sidewalk. Margarita took a deep breath and said,
Mama, Papa, Kaiwa, John,
said Margarita,
I've had a whole lot put on my basket tonight. I feel my life has changed.
It's mutual. You've changed our lives too,
said John.
I did? That is difficult to think, but as the young folks say, that's mind-blowing.
Thank you, Miss Margarita. Have a good trip home, said Kaiwa. Margarita hoisted her bag over her shoulder, turned, and walked down the sidewalk. Papa Bois locked the gate and stood up. Kaiwa said,
Well, what do you think of Miss Margarita? Is she sleeping?
I'm not sure she is. She's an advanced human, but I think she's human.
And a wonderful human she is, said Kaiwa. Are you ready for a race home?
She continued.
1,000 times a year for 1,000 years you've tried to beat me in a race to our village, and you've lost 1,000 times.
Laughed Papa Bois.
I don't mind losing 1,001 times, but I know I will win this time.
Papa Bois laughed and said,
You've said that for the 1,001st time, so you're going to lose for 1,001 times. Start whenever you're ready. You'll meet me there.
Okay, let's start at Lady Chancellor Hill instead of going to Chagaramas and racing across the whole entire northern range.
You could start where you like and when you like.
Laughed Papa Bois.
Okay, race to Lady Chancellor,
said Kaiwa, and in a whiff she took off. Just as quickly, Papa Bois also moved so fast it was tantamount to disappearing. Margarita felt a quick light breeze and a welcome warmth inside. She didn't look back to see if Kaiwa and Papa Bois were still at the entrance to the store. She knew they were gone. She turned onto Charlotte Street towards the taxi stand. If other persons walking in the vicinity had been paying attention, they might have noticed a curious sight as Eddie swirled discarded paper and debris in a row going up the street for a moment, then dissipate. The onlooker would assume a stray zephyr and think no more about it. However, they would not have seen Kaiwa. As she moved, she transformed her human form to a form that no longer disturbed the air and create wind. She was in a form that humans might call plasma, disassociated protons, neutrons, and electrons in a fluid state. She was not plasma. She was still Kaiwa, with coherent thought and will. Her will moved her north on Frederick Street. Her speed was as fast as high-energy X-rays. Faster than the human eye can blink, she was at the top of Lady Chancellor.
As she coalesced back into human form, she saw John sitting on the lookout wall, looking at the lights of the city. He said,
You were very fast. I watched you from start to finish.
Kaiba threw her head back and laughed. Ha! You watched me, eh? Well, the race isn't finished. With that, she reverted to her plasma form and headed for Matlot. She coalesced at the wooded spot she knew Papa Bois liked to spend time. During the day, he stayed there catching the sun, and at night, he liked looking at the stars and the sea. Papa Bois said,
It's a glorious night. Look at the light of the moon on the waves.
Kaiba smiled and patted his trunk. She then sat among his roots and leaned back against his trunk. She took a deep breath and sighed. Yes, it is. To human eyes, Papa Bois would appear like an old tree among the sawgrass overlooking the sea. Only one or two trekkers ventured in that location often enough to notice sometimes the tree was not there. Even in those infrequent occasions, he could return quickly enough that the trekker would doubt their own perceptions. Since he was aware of any hunter or hiker in the forest, he could almost always return to his spot before they got close enough to notice the tree was missing. Only Margarita's grandfather, who found the tree as a young teenager, noticed the tree did not age or change as he himself weathered the decades into his old age. Her grandfather knew the tree was not a natural tree and guessed it was Papa Bois. Yet he never divulged his guess, but raised his children to have the utmost respect and revere the forest. He took Margarita's father to the tree, where they ate and rested among its exposed roots, or sheltered from the rain under its leaves and branches. Sometimes after a meal, they would doze among the roots. He even slapped the trunk and told Margarita's father that the tree was Papa Bois, but never mentioned it was unchanged since he was a boy. If Margarita's father believed the tree was the protector of the forest or not, he did not say. If he felt the deep energy of its presence, he did not say. But he never wanted to hunt. He planted produce and applied himself to his studies, so he did not have to hunt to feed Margarita and her siblings. He even took Margarita to see the tree once and told her how much her grandfather loved the tree. But he did not tarry at the tree, and Margarita never went back to visit the tree. Papa Bois asked the Soucouyant,
What are you going to do with Tua Itza?
Oh, Mr. Lee, maybe I should put him out of his misery, she replied. A rumble flowed through the tree and gently shook the leaves.
Oh, you mean like you put Flats out of his?
Papa Bois prodded mirthfully. I haven't decided yet. Maybe I'll kill them both.
In all the ages we've been here, I've never seen you kill a human.
Well, I have, remember?
I hate to interrupt you, but I mean deliberately, after you work and knew your full self.
I'm not inclined to kill them if they're redeemable. They deserve a chance to redeem themselves.
Oh, of course.
He had a tone of quiet amusement in his voice. They obviously had the discussion before.
You just have to figure out who is redeemable. Have you figured out which are redeemable? I'm still waiting.
I never know. They are full of surprises. They are as deep as any creation, and as wonderful, and as mysterious, and endlessly fascinating. I find them fascinating even after countless ages.
You are fascinated because they are unpredictable.
Huh. Unpredictable doesn't even approach it. She was quiet for a moment, then chuckled. Given everything we know, you'd think we could find a probability density function for them.
You'd think.
A deep laugh rumbled rich and warm through the trunk.
I'll just wait and see how these two are going to surprise me, said Kaiwa.